Billionaire visits her son's grave and finds a black waitress crying with a child. She was shocked. Margaret Holland was a billionaire, but she didn't feel like one. Not today. She stepped carefully through the manicured cemetery grounds, heels sinking slightly into the soft grass. The autumn wind tugged at her designer coat. She didn't care. Her eyes were locked on the headstone ahead of her. Her son's name carved in marble. Andrew Holland. Beloved son. Taken too soon. It had been 3 years. 3 years since the car crash. 3 years of board meetings she didn't remember. Stock prices she didn't care about. Awards that felt meaningless. People still called her a visionary CEO. She felt like a ghost. She brought white roses every time. Andrew had loved them. She set them at the base of the headstone and knelt carefully. Her fingers traced his name. I miss you, she whispered. The wind carried her words away. Usually it was quiet here. That's why she came early in the morning. To avoid awkward sympathy. The whispers about the billionaire in mourning. But today was different. She heard crying. At first she ignored it, thinking maybe it was another grieving parent. But it didn't stop. A soft, heartbroken sob that cut through the wind. She turned. 2 rows back, near a bench, sat a woman. Young. Black. Wearing a faded diner uniform under a worn coat. Shoulders shaking with tears. Next to her sat a little boy, maybe 4 years old. He held her arm tightly, looking scared and confused. Mama. The woman wiped her eyes quickly. I'm sorry, baby. I'm sorry. Margaret felt something twist in her chest. She wasn't the only one hurting. She didn't want to intrude. She tried to look away. But then she heard the woman's voice crack. I'm sorry, Andrew. I'm so sorry. Margaret froze. Andrew. Her Andrew. She turned fully now, staring. The waitress didn't see her at first. She was too busy sobbing into her hands. The child just clung to her, looking around wide-eyed. Margaret's heart thundered. She stood, brushed dirt from her knees. She felt her mouth go dry. She took a step toward them. Excuse me, she said quietly. The woman jerked in surprise. She tried to compose herself, wiping her face with her sleeve. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to disturb anyone. Her voice was hoarse. Margaret cleared her throat. What did you say just now? The woman blinked. I'm sorry? You said. Andrew. The woman's eyes welled up again. She looked down at her son. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I was just talking to him. To who dash? The woman gestured weakly at the headstone. Andrew. Your son, right? I didn't mean to intrude. I come here sometimes. To talk to him. Margaret felt dizzy. You knew my son? The waitress's lips trembled. She swallowed hard. She didn't answer right away. She looked at the boy beside her. He clutched her tighter. Margaret's gaze fell to him. Big brown eyes. Curly hair. Confused, worried. Did you know him? Margaret repeated, voice rising. The woman flinched. Please. Don't. Not here. Tell me. Now. Please. Her voice broke completely. I didn't want you to find out like this. Margaret felt like the ground was tilting. Her mind raced. What was this dash? Some scam? But there was nothing malicious in the woman's face. Only raw grief. The boy hid his face against his mother's side. Margaret noticed he was crying now too, silently. For the first time in 3 years, Margaret didn't know what to do. Please, the waitress whispered. Can we talk somewhere else? Not here. Not in front of him. She stroked her son's hair. He doesn't understand. Margaret stared at them. Then slowly, numbly, she nodded. Get up, she said hoarsely. Come with me. The woman gathered her son in her arms. She stood shakily. Margaret turned back toward the path. She didn't know what she was doing, but she knew she needed answers. The roses lay forgotten on Andrew's grave. and behind her, the wind picked up, swirling fallen leaves around the marble headstones. Margaret led them silently down the gravel path. The child sniffled against his mother's shoulder. Leaves crunched underfoot. Margaret didn't speak. She wasn't sure she could. They reached the small parking lot at the edge of the cemetery. Margaret's sleek black car gleamed in the early light. Next to it was an old, dented hatchback that had seen better decades. Margaret stopped walking. She turned abruptly. "Talk." The woman flinched. She adjusted the child on her hip and wiped her eyes with shaking fingers. "Please, not in front of him. He's just a little boy." Margaret's jaw tightened. Her gaze fell on the child. His eyes were huge, shimmering with tears. He clung to his mother's coat. "What's his name?" Margaret demanded. The woman swallowed hard. "Elijah." Margaret's heart thudded. "Elijah. Biblical. Andrew used to say he wanted to name his son Elijah if he ever had one." Her knees felt weak. "Get in," she said hoarsely, jerking her thumb at her car. The waitress hesitated. I can't leave my car here. It'll be fine. Please, get in." Her voice cracked like a whip. The woman nodded shakily. She set Elijah down and opened the back door. "Come on, baby," she whispered. He climbed in, sniffling. She buckled him in, hands trembling. Margaret got behind the wheel, slamming the door. She didn't start the engine immediately. Her grip on the steering wheel turned her knuckles white. Finally, she forced her voice out. "Who are you?" "My name is Simone." "How did you know my son?" Simone didn't answer. She just stared at her lap, eyes glistening. Margaret's voice rose. "Answer me." Elijah whimpered in the back seat. "Mama, I want to go home." Simone reached back blindly, stroking his knee. "Shoo. It's okay, baby." Margaret swallowed hard. She lowered her voice. "Tell me the truth." Simone's lips trembled. "I met him at the diner, where I work. And? He was kind. So kind. He used to come in late at night. Said he liked the coffee. But it was terrible." A sad smile flickered and died. "He'd stay for hours. Talking. Laughing. I was alone then. He was too. We got close." Margaret's ears rang. She felt like she couldn't breathe. "How close?" Simone looked at her, tears falling freely. "We loved each other." Silence slammed into the car like a punch. Margaret's fingers slipped off the wheel. She covered her mouth. "No. I didn't mean for it to happen. I know who he was. I know who you are. But he didn't care about that." "Stop. Please. Let me finish." "Stop." Elijah burst into frightened sobs. "Mama." Simone twisted in her seat, gathering him into her arms. "Shoo. Baby, please. It's okay. Don't cry." Margaret turned away, staring out the windshield. Her eyes burned. Finally she rasped, Is Elijah his?" Simone buried her face in her son's hair. She didn't speak, but she nodded. Once, slowly. Margaret felt something inside her break. Her son had a child. Her grandchild. And she never knew. The silence in the car was unbearable, broken only by Elijah's sniffling hiccups. Simone finally whispered, "I didn't want to do this here. I swear. I didn't want you to find out like this." Margaret didn't answer. Couldn't. Simone's voice cracked. "He used to talk about you. Said you were the smartest woman he knew. He wanted you to like me. I was too scared. I never told him about Elijah. He died before I could." Margaret flinched like she'd been slapped. "You never told him?" "No." "He didn't know?" "No. He died thinking he didn't matter to anyone." Simone sobbed. "That's not true. He mattered to me. He mattered so much. I was stupid and scared. I ruined everything." Elijah whimpered again. "Mama." Simone clung to him. "I'm sorry, baby. I'm so sorry." Margaret felt tears sliding down her own face. She wiped them away harshly. "Get out." Simone blinked, stunned. What? Get out of my car. Please. Don't. Not here. Get out. She opened the driver's door, stepped into the wind, didn't wait for them. She stumbled away, breath ragged, her vision blurred. Her chest heaved with ugly, gasping sobs. She heard Elijah crying behind her. He didn't understand. None of them did. Margaret fell to her knees on the grass. The world spun around her. Her son was gone, but a piece of him was alive. She'd never felt so lost, so furious, so afraid. And for the first time in years, she didn't know what she was going to do next. Margaret didn't remember how long she sat in the grass. The wind whipped around her, rattling dead leaves across the cemetery. Her designer coat was soaked with dew. She didn't care. At some point, she realized Simone was still there, standing by her car, holding Elijah. The boy had stopped crying. Now he just watched Margaret with wide, uncertain eyes over his mother's shoulder. Margaret wanted to hate them. She wanted to scream. She wanted to go back in time and erase this entire day. But she couldn't. She wiped her face roughly, got up, brushed dirt off her clothes with shaking hands. Her voice cracked when she spoke. Get in the car. Simone startled. What? Get in. Both of you. Please, Margaret, don't say my name. Simone flinched. She looked at Elijah, then at Margaret's frozen expression. She obeyed. They rode in silence. Margaret's fingers clenched the wheel so hard her knuckles were bloodless. Elijah sniffled in the back. Simone murmured to him softly in a broken voice. Margaret didn't speak. She didn't even look at them. She drove them to a small cafe on the edge of town. Private, quiet, neutral ground. She parked, turned off the engine. Didn't move for a long moment. Get out, she said eventually. They did. Inside, they sat at a corner booth. Margaret ordered black coffee she didn't want. Simone ordered warm milk for Elijah, her voice trembling with every word. The child clung to her, exhausted and confused. Finally, Margaret spoke. Her voice was ice. Tell me everything. Simone swallowed. Her fingers tightened around Elijah's little shoulder. I met Andrew at the diner. He was lonely. So was I. We talked. A lot. He liked that I didn't care who he was, or how much money he had. Margaret's eyes narrowed. You did care? No. That's the thing. I didn't want anything from him. That's why he trusted me. Simone's voice cracked. We fell in love. He was kind. He was so gentle with me. He called me after shifts. He made me laugh when I wanted to cry. Margaret's vision blurred. Did he know about Elijah? No. Simone shook her head fiercely. He never knew. I didn't find out I was pregnant until after the crash. Margaret let out a sound between a sob and a growl. So you let him die thinking he was alone? Simone's tears fell freely. Yes. The silence pressed on them. Pushpin text with preview for a YouTube caption. A billionaire mother visits her late son's grave only to find a crying black waitress with a child. When she demands the truth, she discovers the boy is her grandson and she must decide if she can accept them into her life. Elijah sipped his milk. He watched them both with big, solemn eyes. He didn't understand the words, but he understood pain. Margaret's voice dropped to a whisper. Why didn't you tell me? Simone's face crumpled. I was ashamed. I'm a waitress. Single. Black. Poor. What would you have thought of me? Margaret opened her mouth, closed it, because she did know what she would have thought. Exactly that. Simone swallowed. I thought about reaching out 1,000 times. But you're you. And I'm me. And Elijah? He knows he has a dad in heaven. But that's all. I didn't want him to feel rejected before he even met you. Margaret rubbed her forehead. He's mine. Simone flinched. No. He's mine. Their eyes locked. Battle lines in one silent stare. Elijah tugged at Simone's sleeve. Mama, can we go home? Simone's voice broke. Soon, baby. Margaret's voice cracked. You really loved him? Yes. Did he love you? Yes. Margaret shut her eyes. Hot tears squeezed out. She remembered Andrew as a boy. Laughing. Shy. Sweet. She remembered his teenage arguments with her. How he hated her boardroom voice. How she thought she had time to fix it. She never did. And now there was this little boy. His child. His eyes. His blood. She opened her eyes again. Stared at Elijah. He stared back, wary. Margaret's lip trembled. Does he know who I am? Simone shook her head. No. Does he know who Andrew was? Simone brushed Elijah's hair back. Only that he loved coffee and told terrible jokes. That he was brave. That he tried to make the world better. Margaret choked on a sob. She pressed her napkin to her mouth. Her shoulders shook. Simone didn't reach for her. She just held her son tighter. The waitress's voice cracked. I didn't want to ruin your life. Or his. Or Elijah's. I just wanted him to know I loved him. Even if it's too late. Margaret lowered the napkin. Her eyes were raw. It's not too late. Simone blinked. What? Margaret's hands trembled on the table. We're going to figure this out. For his sake. She gestured at Elijah. The boy peeked at her. Big brown eyes. Andrew's eyes. Margaret wiped her cheeks. I don't know how. But we will. Simone exhaled. Collapsed a little. She nodded, tears falling freely. She pulled Elijah close and kissed his hair. And for the first time that day, Margaret felt like maybe she hadn't lost everything after all. Margaret didn't remember the drive home clearly. She drove in silence. Simone sat in the back with Elijah, who fell asleep clutching her shirt. The child's soft breathing filled the car. Margaret forced herself not to look in the rearview mirror too often. She wasn't sure what she'd do if she saw his eyes again. Andrew's eyes. They stopped in front of Simone's apartment building. It was old. Brick crumbling in places. Margaret's gut twisted. She killed the engine but didn't move. Thank you, Simone whispered, unbuckling Elijah. Margaret didn't answer. She watched the cracked sidewalk. Simone hesitated. I'm sorry for everything. Margaret swallowed. Her voice was rough. Don't say that. But I'm not ready to hear it. Simone nodded miserably. She shifted Elijah in her arms. He stirred, blinking sleepily. Mama, we're home, baby. He squinted at Margaret through the window. Margaret felt her chest tighten. Bye, ma'am, he mumbled sleepily. Her lip trembled. She couldn't speak. Simone closed the door gently. Margaret watched them walk inside. She gripped the wheel so hard her hands shook. For a long time she sat there, alone in the car, crying. The next morning, Margaret sat in her penthouse living room staring out at the city. Coffee untouched, phone silent, board documents scattered across the glass table. She didn't see them. Her mind was on Elijah, on Simone's broken voice, on her own cruel words. Get out. She hated herself for that. Julia, her longtime assistant, knocked gently and peeked in. MS. Holland? Margaret didn't move. Julia cleared her throat. You, canceled all meetings today. Should I tell them you'll be out the rest of the week? Margaret blinked slowly. Yes. Do that. Is everything all right? Margaret looked up. Julia froze at the rawness in her eyes. No. Everything is not all right. Julia nodded. Okay. I'll handle it. Margaret picked up her phone. Her thumb hovered over the screen. Simone's number glared back at her. She pressed call. It rang once. Twice. Click. Hello. Her voice stuck in her throat. Simone. MS. Holland. Silence. I want to see him. Today. Simone's voice shook. Okay. After lunch. I'll send a car. We don't need a. Let me do this. Another pause. All right. Margaret hung up. She exhaled shakily. She wasn't sure if she was ready, but she had to be. They met at a park. Neutral ground again. Elijah was running in circles on the grass, giggling. Simone sat on a bench watching him like a hawk. Margaret approached slowly. Her heels crunched on the path. Simone tensed when she saw her. Margaret sat on the far end of the bench. They didn't speak for a long time. Just watched the boy. Elijah noticed her. He paused, waved shyly. Hi, lady. Margaret swallowed a sob. She managed a wavering smile. Hello, Elijah. He ran over. Stopped just short. Big eyes curious. Are you Mama's friend? Simone looked down, pained. Margaret couldn't answer right away. She cleared her throat. I'm trying to be. Elijah frowned thoughtfully, then grinned. Okay. He ran off again. Margaret let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Her hands shook in her lap. He's beautiful, she whispered. Simone's eyes filled. Thank you. Margaret swallowed. He deserves everything. I know. Does he have enough? Simone hesitated. We're okay. Margaret shook her head. That's not what I asked. Simone's voice cracked. No, he doesn't have enough. Margaret closed her eyes. She nodded. Let me help. Simone blinked. What? Money. School. Clothes. A safer home. Let me do that. Why? Because he's my grandson. Her voice broke. Because Andrew would have wanted it. Simone wiped her eyes. I don't want charity. This isn't charity. It's family. Silence fell between them. Elijah ran back over, cheeks flushed. Mama, can she come play too? Simone tried to smile. Margaret's eyes overflowed. I'd like that, Elijah. He beamed, grabbed her hand, tugged. Come on. Margaret let him pull her. Her expensive heels sank into the grass. She didn't care. For the first time in years, she laughed. It cracked. It hurt. But it was real. Simone watched them, tears streaming, and for the first time in forever, she let herself hope. Because maybe they could do this. Together. Margaret never imagined her life would look like this. She used to have carefully planned days. Meetings, investor calls, charity luncheons. Always perfect. Always controlled. Now she sat on a park bench with dirt on her designer skirt, watching her grandson build a crooked sandcastle. Elijah was humming to himself. His curls bobbed in the breeze. He scooped sand with a plastic cup. It spilled everywhere. He didn't care. Margaret watched him, hands folded tight in her lap. She was afraid to move. Afraid to blink. As if he might vanish if she wasn't careful. Simone sat beside her, silent. She looked exhausted, but softer than before. Less guarded. They hadn't said much. Words were hard. So they sat. Elijah turned. Grandma, look. Margaret's heart stuttered. She forced her voice out. What did you say? He beamed. Mama said you're my grandma. Look. He held up his dripping sand creation. Margaret's vision blurred. It's beautiful. He giggled and stomped it flat. Simone let out a watery laugh. Margaret turned to her. Their eyes locked. They both laughed. Then they both cried. It wasn't easy. Margaret tried to throw money at problems. She offered to buy them a new house. Simone bristled. We're not for sale. Margaret flinched. I know. I'm sorry. They had to talk about everything. About Elijah's needs. His fears. His stubborn independence. Simone's pride. Margaret's guilt. They fought. More than once. Voices rising. Old pain tearing open. But they always came back to the table. Because Elijah deserved it. Simone finally let Margaret take him shopping. She watched from a distance as Elijah tugged at Margaret's hand. excited about new shoes. Margaret had no idea how to say no to him. She bought 2 pairs. And socks. And a dinosaur backpack. He fell asleep in the car on the way home, head on Margaret's arm. Margaret stroked his hair gently, eyes wet. "He looks like Andrew," she whispered. Simone nodded. "He acts like him too. Stubborn." Margaret huffed a laugh. "That's definitely a Holland trait." They both smiled. Sad, but healing. Margaret took them to dinner at a quiet family restaurant. Elijah colored on the paper menu, humming. Simone picked at her food nervously. Margaret cleared her throat. "I want to set up a trust for him." Simone froze. "We can talk about it." Margaret nodded. "That's all I'm asking." Elijah looked up. "What's a trust?" Margaret smiled. "It's something that helps you when you're big." "Like a robot?" Simone snorted. Margaret actually laughed. "Maybe." They went to Andrew's grave together. The first time as 3. Margaret brought white roses. Elijah placed a little toy car next to the headstone. "Hi, Daddy. I'm Elijah. Mama says you're in the sky. I hope you can see me." Margaret wept openly. Simone held her. They didn't let go. Julia noticed the change in her boss. Margaret was less brittle. She smiled more. She stopped canceling meetings without explanation. She even invited Simone and Elijah to a company family day. Elijah made everyone laugh. He asked questions about everything. Margaret watched him with pride she didn't bother to hide. One evening, Elijah stayed at Margaret's penthouse for the first time. Simone was nervous. Margaret was terrified, but Elijah ran around the big rooms delighted. He asked Margaret to read to him. She stumbled over the silly rhymes, but he cackled anyway. He fell asleep on her lap. Margaret didn't move for an hour. She just held him and let the tears fall. When Simone came to pick him up, she paused in the doorway. Margaret looked up red-eyed. Simone didn't say anything. She just smiled. It wasn't perfect. They didn't pretend it was. They argued about bedtime, about sugar, about what Andrew would have wanted. But they were learning how to be family. Months later, Margaret sat on a bench at the park watching Elijah play. Simone sat beside her, sketchbook in hand. They didn't need to talk. They just watched him. Elijah turned and waved. "Mama, Grandma, look at me." He ran toward them, arms wide. Margaret opened her arms without thinking. He crashed into her hug, giggling. Simone reached over and joined the hug. All 3 of them clung together, laughing, crying, whole. Margaret whispered into Elijah's hair, "I love you so much." He snuggled closer. "Love you too, Grandma." And in that moment, Margaret knew. Her son was gone. But his love wasn't. It lived in this little boy. It lived in Simone's fierce heart. And finally, it lived in her own healing one. She hadn't lost everything. She'd found something new. Something she hadn't even known she was allowed to hope for. Family.